For centuries, an ancient practice has existed. A technique so profound and transformative that it was kept hidden, not because it was ineffective, but because it was too powerful. Picture this, a forgotten key lost in time, one capable of unlocking the most sacred doorway, the remembrance of your soul. This practice doesn't introduce anything new. Instead, it gently removes the veils of illusion that have been placed upon us. The greatest deception was not in our ignorance, but in the convincing notion that we were something we are not. What if today you remembered your true purpose? What if, instead of searching outward, you discovered a voice within you that has never left? And what if that voice could be awakened by a practice once reserved for only a few initiates, carefully guarded from those who might misuse it for control? This video is not just a story. It's an invitation, a guide to a sacred practice. Not because it's dark, but because it shines with divine truth. Those who wield power in this world fear an awakened soul far more than an army of sleepers. In the next few minutes, we will journey into the origins of this practice, its roots in forgotten schools of wisdom, why it was suppressed, altered, or ridiculed by systems that prefer souls to remain dormant, and how you can apply it to awaken your true essence. This is not merely intellectual knowledge, but an inner awakening, a resonance that aligns you with your eternal consciousness. Through stories, symbols, and ancient philosophy, we will unravel complex truths to return to what truly matters. This isn't a theoretical lesson, it's a personal experience if you are willing to listen with more than just your ears. Because this practice is not about memorizing concepts. It is something you must feel, activate, and most importantly, remember. So if you're ready to see beyond the illusions and challenge everything you've been told about who you are, this video could ignite the spark you need. Forbidden doesn't always mean dangerous. Sometimes it means the truth is too radiant to be shared openly. Across nearly every ancient civilization, a common thread is woven, a quiet whisper spanning centuries and continents. The idea that humanity has forgotten its true nature, that life, as we experience it, is a veil, a dream separating us from the sacred memory of who we truly are, and that there are paths designed to awaken this memory. But here's the catch, these paths are not written in textbooks or taught in schools. They have been hidden, banned, or distorted into myths and superstitions. Their true power has been symbolically locked away, preventing access to those who might seek it. For example, in ancient Egypt, the priests of the temples of life performed secret initiation rites in which newcomers experienced a symbolic death. Their physical bodies rested while their consciousness was guided through subtle spiritual realms by a master. When they returned, they were transformed. They had crossed the veil and remembered. In ancient Greece, the Orphic teachings described the soul as trapped in the body, not as a punishment, but as part of a purification process. Through breathwork, chanting, and trance states, the soul could temporarily free itself from its earthly identity, glimpsing its divine origin. This experience, they said, was not just revelatory, it was irreversible. In ancient India, the wise seers spoke of smarana, a term meaning to remember what the soul already knows. To them, ignorance was not a lack of knowledge, but a disconnect from the divine source. The path back wasn't about acquiring more knowledge, but about unlearning, silencing the mind, and returning to the original vibrational state of being. Across all these cultures, the essence of the technique remained the same. Though the forms varied, it was never about learning something new. It was about reconnecting with the spiritual memory that resides deep within. Then came the darkness, the rise of institutionalized religions, and the control over inner truth. What was once a path to remembrance became rigid rituals, dogmatic beliefs, or outright heresy. The sacred practices were fragmented, their symbols hidden in myths, and their core teachings sealed off, labeled as dangerous. Dangerous to whom? To the systems that fear an awakened soul. For once a soul remembers its divine origin, it can never again be controlled. Today, this knowledge is resurfacing, not as something new, but as a memory reawakening in those who are ready to receive it. And the most beautiful part, this so-called forbidden technique has always been within you, dormant in the deepest parts of your consciousness, waiting for you to recognize it. To understand the power of this practice, we must first rethink something crucial. The soul does not need to learn who it is, it needs to remember. And this remembrance does not come through thought, but through vibration, a specific frequency. When that frequency is activated within you, all that is false begins to dissolve, and all that is true shines forth like a quiet light. But how do we reach this frequency? The forbidden technique isn't about words or rituals. It is an internal process, a series of steps that align your body, mind, energy, and consciousness. Through resonance, your soul's memory unfolds, not as an idea, but as a living experience. Imagine your soul as a perfect melody, covered by layers of noise, interference, past traumas, and conditioning. This practice acts as a tuner. It doesn't add anything new. It simply removes the barriers and harmonizes everything. As it does so, that original melody starts to play again. This technique is broken into 3 phases, and while they don't always follow a strict order, they are all necessary for the process. The first phase is the deprogramming of the false self. This is the hardest and most essential step. It involves identifying the voices inside you that aren't truly yours, thoughts you've accepted without questioning, masks you wear without realizing. You must observe deeply. What are you thinking? What do you desire? What do you fear? And ask yourself, is this truly mine, or was it placed upon me by someone else? This technique teaches you to clear away old mental habits, not by battling them, but by seeing them for what they truly are. Once you become aware, what was never built from your true essence can be dismantled by your true essence. The second phase is the activation of your inner sense. As the noise from the outside world begins to fade, something you've always had but rarely noticed begins to emerge. This inner sense is not bound by logic or emotion. It is direct perception. You don't force it awake, you simply attune to it. The technique helps you activate this sense through mindful breathing, silent rituals, full presence within your body, and the visualization of universal symbols. One powerful insight here is that what you focus on with devotion and intention, your soul recognizes as real. This isn't fantasy, it's a bridge. The symbols, such as an inner flame, a lotus within the heart, or a mirror of the soul, are not mere constructs. They are universal images that awaken ancient memories. When used correctly, they do not create ideas. They spark inner visions, experiences, and reconnections. The third phase is resonance with your true name. Deep spiritual traditions speak of the soul's hidden name, not a word that can be spoken aloud, but a unique vibration. This technique teaches that every being carries a sacred frequency. When you connect with it, not through words, but by embodying a specific state, you instantly recognize it. It's like a door that has been closed for centuries suddenly opening. You don't remember with your mind, but with your vibration. You feel a powerful certainty. This is me. I've always been this way. I just forgot. This process doesn't occur overnight. It requires dedication, honesty, and commitment. But once it begins, something irreversible takes place. Part of you starts to observe from a deeper, calmer, and more authentic place. This is when the true journey begins. As the technique unfolds and the layers of the false self begin to dissolve, while your inner vibration clears, something beyond words occurs. Your soul remembers, not through thought, but through direct experience. It is like a light turning on in a room that you have always had, yet never explored. What emerges are not mere ideas, but presences, parts of you that have been waiting to be seen. The you who loves unconditionally, trusts without fear, and knows without needing to learn. At this stage, awakening becomes not just a concept, but a tangible experience. The soul begins to recognize its divine origin. But there's a subtle warning. Not everything that is uncovered is light. As you remember who you are, you also recall who you are not. Mistakes, unfinished choices, and unhealed wounds will surface. This is a vital part of the process, not punishment, but liberation. You cannot embrace the fullness of your soul without facing your shadow too. When practiced properly, this technique reveals not only your light but also what you have hidden, even from yourself. This is why many spiritual traditions caution that this practice is not for beginners. Facing your soul honestly requires spiritual maturity, not measured by years, but by your willingness to confront the truth. At this point, those who practice deeply may enter what could be described as a conscious trance. This is not the trance referred to in psychology, where one loses themselves or enters a hypnotic state. It is an expanded awareness. The soul takes command of what you perceive. You become aware of your body, but also notice your surroundings from a slight distance. You think, but thought no longer controls you. It is as though your consciousness steps back from the ego, just enough to observe clearly. From this quiet space, everything begins to acquire new meaning. Emotions become clearer, perceptions widen, and time feels fluid. Sudden insights arise without logical reasoning. Memories from past lives or ancestral wisdom emerge, knowledge you never consciously studied, but carry with you nonetheless. This is the deepest aspect of the technique. It is no longer a practice. It becomes a way of living. You begin to live from a new center, not by wearing masks, but by acting from your true essence. Your decisions become clearer, relationships more authentic, and fears less overwhelming. Here is the paradox. The soul doesn't learn who it is, it remembers. This remembrance is not an image or a story, but a steady vibration recognized as home. And when this happens, the most sacred transformation occurs. The soul settles. Once that happens, nothing is the same. Your body remains and life continues, but something within you awakens and will never sleep again. This is why the technique was considered forbidden, not because it is dangerous to you, but because it threatens everything that has kept you asleep. Awakening is not a singular event. It is an ongoing practice. Even a brief moment of deep inner realization does not mean you will automatically live in that state all the time. The technique we've discussed is not just a spiritual experience, it is a compass for daily living. Integrating it into your life transforms seekers into wise beings, students into teachers, and mundane routines into sacred rituals. We are not discussing rigid rules, but living principles, paths that, when followed with intention and persistence, awaken and sustain remembrance, even in the busiest parts of life. True spiritual power is not about being illuminated in isolation. It is about staying awake amidst the noise. First, practice active silence. The soul remembers best in silence, not simply the absence of sound, but the silence of undivided attention. Set aside a few minutes each day, no matter how brief, to simply be with yourself. Do not seek anything. Do not expect visions. Just breathe, observe, and allow. This time is not just rest. It is a sanctuary where the echo of your true name begins to come through clearly. Next, transform your actions into a ceremony. One of the key aspects of this technique is turning your daily tasks into acts of presence. Whether eating, walking, speaking, or observing, when done from the center of your being, these actions become forms of remembrance. Every gesture can be an offering, every word an invitation. Ask yourself, am I acting from a mask or from my true self? When you live from your soul, even the smallest actions become sacred, and this keeps your remembrance alive. Third, be mindful of what you allow into your mind. Your soul never forgets, but your mind can bury that memory beneath a flood of distractions. What do you consume? What conversations do you engage in? What images do you repeatedly expose yourself to? This technique teaches that everything entering through your senses shapes your inner vibration. And that vibration is like a sacred temple where your soul's memory manifests. Cleanse your environment. Guard your attention as a skilled alchemist tends a fire. Fourth, speak less and let your words come from a deeper place within. Don't just echo what you've read or heard. Don't use other people's words as your own. Don't speak out of habit. When you speak, let your voice arise from the core of your being, from where your soul lives. Words spoken from remembrance have the power to awaken others. Let your voice become a channel, not for mere ideas, but for divine resonance. Fifth, act as though you already know who you are, even if you haven't fully remembered yet. Live in alignment with that knowing, not as a form of pretense, but as a means of tuning in. The soul reveals itself when it sees you committed to living authentically, even before full remembrance. Walk as though you carry an ancient legacy within you. Love as if you have loved for millennia. And remember, remembering doesn't come from searching. It comes from vibration. For centuries, we've been told that awakening is hard, that the soul is an unfathomable mystery, and that knowing who we truly are is a privilege reserved for the few. But this is a lie. The most forbidden truth is not complicated. It is simple, direct, and ever-present. It is the truth that those who wish to keep you asleep fear the most. This journey we have embarked on together is not just a collection of ideas. It is a map, a beacon, a torch for those who sense there is something more. Something beyond the name you speak each day. Beyond the role you play. Beyond the story you've been told about yourself. You are not what you think you are. You never were. You are a vibrant part of eternal consciousness, a note in a cosmic symphony that still plays on. Your ancient memory has simply been veiled by the present moment. And you forgot. We all forgot. But here's the key: you can remember. The technique we've explored is not some new invention, nor is it a secret formula to be sold. It is a reflection of what has always been within you. It is the reawakening of primal memory. Most importantly, you do not need to search for it outside of yourself. You do not need gurus, nor do you need to be perfect. You simply need to return to your center, quiet the noise, and allow your soul, which is filled with infinite wisdom, to reveal to you what it has always known. Remembering who you are doesn't just change the way you think, it transforms the way you perceive the world. You will stop seeing enemies and begin seeing mirrors. You will stop fearing the future and begin honoring it. You will stop repeating broken stories and start writing your own truth. When that truth comes alive within you, everything shifts completely. You will stop needing validation from others because you will be connected to something far greater. You will stop seeking all the answers because your silence will have grown wise. You will stop chasing love because you will realize you are love. This is not an empty promise. It is an invitation. An invitation you must have the courage to accept. Because the path of the soul's remembrance is beautiful, but not always comfortable. It strips away everything that is not you, rebuilds you, and places you face to face with the parts of yourself you have hidden so that you can choose who you truly are. If this message touches you, if something inside you stirs, if a part of you whispers, "Yes, this is for me," don't let your mind extinguish that spark. Subscribe to this channel. If this video has resonated with you, hit like. Share it with anyone who needs to remember. Because there is no revolution greater than the awakening of a soul. When you do, others will follow. And without violence, dogma, or forced religion, the world will begin to change from the inside out. From the place where everything began, from remembrance. You are not here to learn. You are here to remember. And that remembering has already begun.